Is there a team in college football this year that has taken on the personality more of its head coach than this Oklahoma team? Brent Venables is an absolute certified lunatic as a head coach, and I mean that in all the positive ways. He is aggressive, he is demanding, but he cares about his players, and he has built this off of a defensive style and a brand that relies on relentlessness, aggressiveness, toughness, physicality. And there may be a couple things that are kind of lost in the cracks because he's so determined and laser focused on doing things the way he wants to do them. This is the McShay Show, presented by FanDuel, and college football Saturdays are heating up. Whether you're in for the early kick or the late night action, FanDuel lets you bet your way with the same game parlays, live betting, game props, and more. And Missouri, get excited because FanDuel is coming your way on December 1st. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com/McShay and make every Saturday count. Must be 21 and older and present in select states, or 18 and older and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. And I'm watching an Oklahoma team each and every week take on that identity. And remember, they had a lot of transfer portal guys. They have a new offensive coordinator in Arbuckle who has fallen right into line and is like a perfect fit because he can do a lot of the due diligence on the offensive side and is a perfect complement to what Venables is doing. And I'm watching Oklahoma each and every week. It's not just R. Mason Thomas because he's been nicked up. And now it's the Ween cat on the other side. And now it's some other individuals stepping up. It's special teams. It's offense. It's complementing one another. This was not John Mateer's best day. But Alabama had things rolling. They're playing at home. They've got all the advantages in this game. And Oklahoma just wasn't having it. And it's just as a football fan who didn't, like, I picked Alabama to win the national championship. So if I had any horse in the race, it might have been that. I don't care. I just wanted to see a great game. And it was sloppy at times. There were mistakes and turnovers and just like wild plays. But it was two teams that just laid it on the line. And no more so than Oklahoma and Oklahoma's defense. That was the story. The story was Oklahoma's defense in this game. And I'm going to give it my spotlight player of the week. We do this every week. And I think, unfortunately, we've done almost all, if not all, offensive players to this point. Well, we're flipping it today because the most deserving unit to be under the spotlight and to have focus was Oklahoma's defense. And the most deserving player from that defense, in my opinion, was Kip Lewis. Did you watch this guy? 23-21 win. They hold Ty Simpson in that vaunted passing attack to 21 points in the victory. Upset win in Tuscaloosa. He had 7 tackles. All 7 were solo, in space, rangy, flying around the field. The emotional leader of this defense. He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. And one of those sacks, remember that sack? It was the sack that maybe saved the season for Oklahoma. Kip Lewis comes racing in, gets an 11-yard sack late in this game. And you felt like that was the moment where everyone for Oklahoma was like, oh, this is our game. We got this. And it's not because the gunslinger John Mateer. He did his part, and he grinded it out. But like his stat line, if you look at the end of it, what did he finish? He was only 15 of 24 for 138 yards. If you told me that Oklahoma was going to go in and knock off the number 4 team in the country with Ty Simpson on the other side playing at the level he's been playing, I'd say, yes, it would take a great defensive performance, all 3 phases, but Mateer would have to give me more than 138 yards passing and 23 yards rushing. He'd have to. There's no way. McShay, Mateer's going into Tuscaloosa against that team that's been on fire. since that Florida State blemish. And he's going to throw for 138 and probably even scarier, quite honestly, considering what's happened since that thumb injury. Even scarier is just the 23 yards rushing. And Oklahoma's going to win. It would be hard to forecast how'd that happen? Turnovers, crazy. And it was just a stifling defense. Just going through this, I was blown away. I want to hold on to that note for later. I was blown away with how disciplined yet aggressive. And I say this all the time. I'll never forget the Venables story. I want to say it was NC State. They when he was the defensive coordinator at Clemson, I wound up having 4 Clemson games that year, okay? And they pulled it off. It was a miracle play at the end. I think it was a missed field goal. And they came rushing down, and the coaches come down for the final minute of the game. He's on the sidelines, and he comes rushing over. For some reason, he decides he's just going to clock my ass, knocks me, forearmed and it was out of affection. That's when I knew he was a madman, right? But his defenses have always played with that same level, out of control yet still under control. He's going to take chances, but he's going to have something behind it to make you second guess. It's like a string attached. If I'm sending this, something's going to move over here. That's how all defenses work, by the way, if you're a quarterback. And so we saw that throughout the day today. And what did it do? It didn't shut down Ty Simpson. Because if you look at Ty Simpson, he did all right. If you look at Ty Simpson at the end of the day, he was able to do some really good things. He was 28 of 42. He threw for 326 yards and a touchdown. But he threw a critical interception that was returned for a touchdown. And that's when I tell you, he's going to send something, and then he's going to twist something behind it so that the string doesn't match. So if you send a corner blitz, right? If you watch tape on an all 22, try this one time. If someone's coming unexpected, whether it's a corner or it's a linebacker, there's string attached to that human being. You visualize that. And as that corner goes, there's going to be a safety that kind of gets tugged over to that area. It's called sound defense. What he does sometimes is there'll be a detachment of this string, and this guy who's supposed to be going with it will go this way. And all of a sudden, that string's attached to something else. And so I'm trying to explain this to you. Venables does this a lot, and that's how he turns people over. He'll throw in a wrinkle off of I've seen that cat blitz before, a corner blitz. I've seen a safety coming. I've seen the linebacker coming through the A-gap or a delayed blitz. But what you don't always see is the wrinkle behind it, and he got Ty Simpson on one. And pressure came with it. So now Ty's got to make a quick decision. I think it was a switch release, and the cornerback jumped it. However the dynamics are, and I'll look at it on tomorrow and maybe get back to it for the tape truth on Monday. But that's a pick 6. Okay, so that's one big play in a game that we didn't know it at the time was going to be a defensive battle. Neither team would score, 25 or more. And so I'm watching this play out. And while Simpson's driving the ball and he's moving it, and Ryan Williams has this catch, and Jeremy Bernard has that catch, and Isaiah Horton has a couple catches, and Cuevas has a touchdown. Things are working, but there's enough pressure to make the pipes burst at times. And I thought it was great too. I hope this lasts for a few years. I hope that Ryan Grubb stays at Alabama, and I hope that Venables is at Oklahoma, and I hope Mateer and Simpson are back next year, despite all the NFL draft talk, especially with Ty Simpson. I want to see this again. I want to see that battle. This episode is brought to you by Remitly Business. Meet Remitly Business, the simple way to pay international contractors or vendors, letting them choose how they get paid, bank, wallet, or cash. Send in minutes using your existing account with no bank visits, no cutoff times, and no waiting for Monday. Plus, enjoy transparent pricing and lower fees than traditional bank wires. Visit Remitly.com or download the Remitly app to get started. Delivery options vary by recipient location. Because those are two of the most fun if you appreciate quarterback play, and they're polar opposite experiences. Ty Simpson's the most buttoned up, advanced beyond his years quarterback that college football has right now. His mechanics are impeccable. I have this quarterback coach that I worked at, Tate Worksworth, and he works with a lot of top-ranked quarterback prospects, and Alex McLaughlin's his name. I've mentioned him before. I get 5 texts a freaking week from him about like the mechanics, the eyes, like everything. He's a coach's dream because he's a coach's son. And he's been around the game his whole life. And then you got Mateer, who's just a gunslinging, crazed, aggressive. Mechanics are horrible. Jumping up in the air, throwing the ball, none of it makes sense. But the results are awesome for the most part. And he's got a ton of talent. And he's built like a truck, and he plays like a fullback mentally, and he's got legs of a fullback and all those things, okay? And so you get these two contrasting styles that I love to see. And while one quarterback, the more polished guy, had more yards, like 200 more yards passing, and moved the ball more effectively and did all these good things, he was thrown off his rhythm in this game. And the other quarterback, who's this wild guy who could run just as well as he throws, and he's fast and he's aggressive and he's physical, he was kind of bottled up too. And I don't want it to get lost on people. Alabama's defense did an awesome job in this game. Remember, 7 of those points, one touchdown in a 23-21 win was a defensive touchdown. And so the defenses were both amazing in this game. But Oklahoma just did enough in the moments. And that's the thing that I think it's hard to do with transfer portals. It's hard to build a program. It's hard to do all the. And Oklahoma, I've talked to you about Jim Nagy coming from the Senior Bowl, and now the general manager there. Like they're doing it at a professional, buttoned up level that I know for a fact, being on the inside of some of these things, a lot of other programs are watching, consulting with the same people that they use to figure out how Jim and how they're doing it. And they're starting to try to do that. But you still have to have a coach that's going to pull it all together. And Venables has done that at Oklahoma. And this team was left for dead. Remember how bad that beating was against rival Texas? Should Mateer have come back? And I told you about the tape against Ole Miss, and it was hard to watch, man. And it wasn't, no, that was Nussmeier. One of his next tape, it was, I forget who it was against. Maybe it was Ole Miss. I forget who it was against, but he was missing just errant throw after errant throw, okay? And he's steadily getting a little bit better. And he even said in an interview, like, he's more confident now than he has been since the injury. And it didn't show on the stat line, but he's making better decisions, and he's running when he needs to run. And you watched it, like, this team came out rolling. They came out hot, like you could tell all week long. Just the mental preparation, but they were also like caged animals, just let out finally. And right off the bat, setting the tone. Satania, the punt return. After 3 and out for defense, you got a big punt return, held to a field goal, but it's 3-0. 2 turnovers led to 14 points for Oklahoma. Punching at the ball, ripping, like doing all the little things. Now it's 17-7, but Ty Simpson keeps grinding. I thought this was one of the most important moments in this game. A graphic popped up. This is McDonough and McElroy with Molly McGrath on the sideline. 3 of my favorite human beings in this business. It had a great graphic. The 2-minute operation for Alabama. They outscored their opponents this year in that final 2 minutes before the half, okay? 49-10. They had a 39-point advantage. 3rd in the entire country behind just Toledo, which I found interesting, and Oregon. And you hear all the time about the 8-minute, the final four, the final four and the first four of the half. And so they've been dominating that. But Oklahoma, they drive down the field a little bit. They get an opportunity. I think it was a shorter field. They drive down. They miss that field goal. At that point, after seeing that graphic and kind of recalling how they've done things, they have dominated that 8-minute span. The final four, the first four. And the stats prove the final two, they've been awesome. And it's in large part because Ty Simpson's so good in the 2-minute drill. He's just in command. And he thrives in those situations. But they hold him to a field goal, miss the field goal, and now all of a sudden they're carrying momentum. Then the second half. Mateer wasn't brilliant in this game, as I said, but he climbs the pocket on this one throw to Satania. And you can just tell they're gaining confidence on that side of the ball. I also thought that there were times you saw flashes of Alabama's run game on the opposite side. Like you saw good things from both of these offenses at times, but it really was a defensive turnout. And then I mentioned finally, it was all three phases for Oklahoma, and it required that. If you're going to go into Tuscaloosa, you've got to play well and play complementary ball in all three phases. This was not going to be an offensive day. But they did enough on that side of the ball. The defense was the star, but the special teams, and I'll never forget Nagy and I talking this summer in August. We were doing our preseason top 12, I think it was, and we were previewing each of the teams and doing like deep dives. And I asked Jim, who would know better than the guy who's the general manager of the program, talking about some of your personnel. I don't know some of these guys who are coming in, the transfer portal guys. I know the R. Mason Thomases. I know the Deion Burks. I know intimately through tape study John Mateer. But tell me about some other guys. And I was surprised as we're going back and forth how early in that conversation he talked to me about this kicker, Tate Sandell. Yeah, he's the guy who wears the short shorts and kicks the long field goals, and Herbie and Fowler make fun of him and all that. But when you get over the jokes, he's another perfect day, man. 3 for 3 field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. That's 11 points in a 2-point win. And if you're an Oklahoma fan, remember your kicking situation a year ago? I don't know what was worse, your special teams last year or your wide receiver core with 5 starters out, or your quarterback play, or your offensive line. It was all bad. And so to see this team with some parts that come in, but then to gel together the way Oklahoma has. Let's look at the outlook here. Alabama's still right where it needs to be, but there's a ton of pressure on that Auburn game now. It's all on the Iron Bowl. And how else would you want it, right, as a college football fan? Right after Thanksgiving, stuff from all the food, maybe hungover. You got the Iron Bowl. The SEC title is on the line for Alabama, and the entire college football playoff run is on the line. They win, they're playing, from my understanding, they're in the SEC championship game. They lose, they're not only out of the SEC championship game, they might not be in the college football playoff, depending on how this thing shakes out. So a massive game looming for there. And then Oklahoma, remember we talked all year, it's been a great run. The Mateer injury really set them back. Mateer can come back next year. They've really got foundations in place. And it was great to see that Venables in the program are building something here, and it's heading in the right direction after coming to some ups and downs. But this schedule, there's no way. There's no way, right? Well, now they've got 4 wins now against top 25 teams. They've pulled off a couple big upsets. And now you look at the schedule that's so freaking brutal. And all of a sudden, they've got 2 games remaining in the regular season. They're both in Norman. And they're against good teams, but teams that both don't have their starting quarterbacks. Bo Perbula, Missouri, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. Those are winnable games. Oklahoma, if Oklahoma takes care of its business and plays a B-level game, and I know Venables, Brent doesn't want me to say that, but if they just play solid games the last 2 weeks, they're in the college football playoff. And you'd be lying if you told yourself, oh, I knew that, because everyone had left Oklahoma for dead. So today was a massive game if you're a Sooners fan. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.